I will call the meeting to order. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact with 2 meters of anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you're experiencing flu-like symptoms, we're requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. When you are joining the meeting via Zoom, all participants will be in the waiting room, and your microphone will be muted until the host lets you in that room. You can watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. Okay, that's good enough for that. I'll begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. My name is Neil Harden. I am chairing today's meeting. With me is Robert Hutchings, who's via Zoom, and Jeff Peich, who's to my far left. And the recording secretary is Kara Balshaw, and the assessor is Jason Brown. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been spread in each application. We'll limit discussion to those matters. The statements of the applicants or the assessor make at hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench as the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Eric, can you do the...
Assessor, please state your name.
Jason Brown.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Newman, you're the first applicant, so for the record, please state your name. Mr. Newman?
Mark Newman.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Mr. Harden, Mr. Chair, I'm having difficulty hearing you sitting in that chair, being so far away.
Okay, I will speak up.
Thank you.
We have 55 Waterfront Drive is the first item on the agenda, and it's a business appeal. So you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 195376. The address on the docket is 55 Waterfront Drive. However, the address on my evidence is 75 Forks Market. This is a hotel named the Inn of the Forks. Business ID 33689. The hotels are done on an economic approach or an economic calculation, which is 10% of the realty value. For this property, we have a realty value of $19,370,000. We've taken 10% of that. We've added the cost of $2.45 per square foot to the entire building. And this yields the 2020 ARV of $2,162,040. We're asking for that to be confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Newman, any questions?
I have no questions. I am content to have the assessment confirmed.
Okay, confirmation requested. Jeff, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Bob, any questions?
No questions, but I'm trying to, I've got an email with different documents in them. I require the item number that we're dealing with so that I can track down my appropriate documents in my email.
Okay, this is item number 4.
Okay. I did find it, but before we start, I am looking electronically, so I have to locate the documents before we begin on each appeal, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Well, not that. Okay, seeing that confirmation is requested, that will end the hearing on this item. We'll go to item 5, 615 Mission Street for the year 2019.
So thank you, Mr. Newman. I'm gonna put you back in the waiting room now.
I've got the document now, the assessor's brief and the appellant's brief. Thank you.
Okay, and this is 2019. I guess it's supplementary realty assessments.
If you could state your name for the record.
Jared Story.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so 615 Mission Street, 2019. Mr. Brown, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number is 2023. Roll number is 060508 300. Subject address is 615 Mission Street. I'm defending a 2019 assessment of $2,689,000. So these are brand new buildings. There's 3 of them consisting of 12 premises. They're 1-story, built between 18 and 19, 20-foot wall height. They're sitting on 128,232 square feet of land, and the leasable area is 22,560. We have a land to plan ratio of 6.68. On the second page of my evidence, there are 2 sales, both vacant land. So this sold February 4, 2016 for $516,256. Once again, as vacant land. I have 5 comparables on page 3. All newer builds ranging from 95 to 2012. All similar size to the subject, ranging from 1,500 square feet up to 2,925. And the lease start dates are all within the reference period. You can see the net rents of the comparables ranging from $8.21 up to $15.70. Page 4 of my evidence will show our income workup. We're using a rent of $9.04 per square foot for 22,560 square feet. We've applied a 5% vacancy to that. 7% expenses for this cycle and a 6.55 cap, yielding the estimated value of $2,689,000. Some photographs starting on page 8, aerial photograph. So this is on Mission between Panet and Archibald. Aerial view of the site below that. You can see the 3rd building was being built at the time of this. There is a plan for 7 buildings in total when the site is complete. There's a street view photograph at the bottom of page 9 showing the current state of the property. Some exterior shots on 10 and 11. And there's one interior shot at the bottom of page 12. We have a leasing advertisement on page 13 for the subject property, showing they're seeking a rent of $9.95 per square foot. Some of the attributes are listed there. St. Boniface Industrial Park, flex space, on-site parking, etc. Layout of the proposed development on page 14 with the 7 buildings, some more exterior shots on page 15, and the site plan on page 16. From page 17 through to page 33 are all permits for this property. Each building has its own permit. So at the top, you'll see building A on page 17. This is the new industrial construction. We'll see the total project value of $315,000. So most of these are similar. There's also the partial permit foundations, which have a declared construction value of $75,000. There's one for each building, which is why there are so many. So basically, they're stating that each building costs about $315,000 to build. Page 36, there is a mortgage and status of title. I'll direct you to page 38, which is the most recent mortgage from 2016. They're noting a $5 million mortgage on this property. And of course, there are no INEs because this property was not operational at the time of the reference period. So based on that evidence, we're asking that the assessment be confirmed at $2,689,000. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Stern?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I guess firstly, we can establish that at the reference date, this property was not constructed, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and we see here we've got 20-foot wall heights, which give us about 18-foot ceiling clearance heights, correct?
Excuse me, Mr. Stern. Bob, can you hear Mr. Stern's questions? You're going to have to unmute, I think.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, okay, so we've confirmed we have 18-foot clearance heights. Is that typical for new industrial construction, or would that be considered low by today's standards?
They range anywhere from 18 to 28, from what I've seen.
18
Depending on,
to 28?
Yeah.
Okay, so this would be on the low end of new construction. That's probably fair to say. Now, we've got a plan area of 19,200 square feet and a leasable area of 22,560 square feet. Now, that includes some mezzanine space, correct? Correct. Okay, and typically, does the market consider mezzanine space do they place a separate value on separate mezzanine space, or how does the market generally view
it depends on the degree of finish. I've seen mezzanines with bathrooms, office space, lunchrooms, etc.
Have you visited this property?
I have not.
So you've not been inside or outside of the units in this property?
Correct. We have inspected it. The department has, and I've spoken to the person who's inspected.
Okay, and you're familiar with this area?
Yes, I drive by this every day almost.
And you're familiar that this is directly adjacent to the Loveday mushroom valley.
Yep.
And does this assessment consider that a negative externality?
Off the top of my head, I don't believe it does.
Okay. Page 2 of your brief, we've got a sales history. This is for the land, correct?
Correct.
And that's for 4 acres, but this is situated on 2.9, so 1.1 acres has been carved off of this. Is that correct?
I'm unaware of that.
Okay. And the photo, just for clarity, that's a rendering. That's an image. That's from a marketing.
Below that, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Now I do have some rebuttal evidence for these rental comps. So we'll speak to that later. But my question is, have you looked into these rental comps to ensure that they are indeed non-arm's length transactions? Not
in any. Not in depth. No.
Okay. So I'll leave that for my rebuttal, but my main question here is on Raleigh. That was an interesting one because I went to look at the company's record, and it appears that a company that used to own the building is the current tenant. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. And the other thing I noticed here is that the BA has a square footage of 3,520 square feet, and you've used 2,925. So is it safe to assume that difference would be the mezzanine that's in that building?
I'm unaware.
Okay. And just for clarity's sake, if we do include that 3,520 square feet as the actual leasable area, we come to a net rent of $8.30 per square foot. Now, I've asked you about the arm's length. I'll speak to that in my rebuttal. Moving forward to page 4, are all of these inputs modeled?
Correct.
And there are no overrides by the city?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and the vacancy at 5%. For a new building, is it not typical that the department would allow a lease up or a marketing period for a brand new build that did not exist at the time of the reference date?
So I looked into that. It looks like the first tenant moved in January 15th, 2018. This was added to roll May 1st, 2018. So there was a 4-month grace period. Okay. Between the first leasing activity and the assessment becoming effective.
But the reference date is 16, right? So, okay, that's fine. Now the expenses, we've got 7%. Now that would be 5% on a non-recoverable. That's the cost of space marketing. That's our non-recoverable argument that we talk about a great deal. So from the city's document, it says that with net leases and competent management, there's expenses incurred by the landlord that are non-recoverable from the tenants. So that's 5% of that 7% is comprised of that, and then 2% is structural. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm pretty sure everyone here is aware that the city went from 7 to 2%.
That's fine. Okay, and the cap rate is 6.55%, and that's model derived as well?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and again, the cap rate doesn't, or to your knowledge, does it take into account the negative externality of the location, and does it take into account what we'll call the lower end of the ceiling heights for new industrial buildings?
I'm unaware.
Okay, page 6, this is a cap rate table. Now, is the city providing the ratepayer any other evidence to support the cap rates that are used in developing the assessment of this property?
Well, we have our cap rates are showing ranging between 5.5 to 9.5, the 20th percentile being at 6, and the 80th percentile being at 7.5. Yes, and then we have 3 outside sources showing a range from Collier shows a range from 6 to 7.25. CBRE shows a range from 6 to 7.25, and Stevenson shows 7 to 7.5.
Okay, I see that, but there's no supporting document for your City of Winnipeg cap rate table. There's no study that backs this. The city is not providing anything save for this table to the ratepayer for the purpose of this assessment. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Moving on, got the photos here now. That's fine. Got some mix of renderings and photos. The leasing document. Now, just on page 16, this is from the marketing materials, and it's showing that 5 of the 12 units are vacant, correct? Or they're listed as available, which would be vacant.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what, 46% vacancy at this point?
Yeah, I don't know when this was effective.
Okay, you've included a raft of permits here. Now we're aware that only buildings B, C, D, and E are what we're talking about today. Have you calculated the total value of these permits?
No, I haven't.
Okay. And just one last thing for this one. On page 36, I noticed that there's a caveat on title. Is that something that would impede further development in your mind, or do you have any idea what that is related to?
I haven't investigated that.
Okay. And with that, I suppose those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, do you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Brown, just to confirm, the rental rate you're using is $9.04. Is that correct in your workup?
That's correct.
Page 4, okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Jeff, any questions?
I do. In the marketing materials you've presented, do we have a date on those?
I usually check. This was originally scheduled for, I think, was it April 30th? So these were completed a long time ago. I do usually check. If you right click on the PDF file, it'll usually tell you when it was published.
Okay.
And I would usually remove any post-reference material. So I'm assuming I checked because the rent is not removed.
Okay, and I heard a question to you, and I'm not sure I heard the answer, but is it true that 46% vacancy rate at the time of the printing of materials?
I mean, it's a brand new building. Of course, there's going to be, as they're looking for tenants to, but yeah, I'm not sure when that was, what the date on that is. It could have been a couple weeks after they opened, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, unclear to me. Okay, no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, I have no questions either. You said you had some rebuttal evidence?
I do, yes. So that should have been provided to you.
Oh, I see.
Like go to the main menu and there's a folder called rebuttal. There's 3 documents on it.
And Mr. Chair, I also have what we consider new evidence. I was able a few days ago to do a inspection, physical inspection of the property. I recognize that's new evidence. If you're amenable to that, you can see the interior of these units if you find that helpful, and that's also been provided electronically.
Okay, do you have any objection to that, Mr. Brown?
To the, what was it again?
So physical inspections, just photos of the
Okay,
interior.
yeah, no, I'm.
Okay, then we'll let that in for.
Excuse me, Kara, can you help me locate this rebuttal evidence, please?
I just sent it to you.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay, so on the rebuttal evidence.
Yes. Okay. So very quickly, we looked through 670 Raleigh. Now I spoke to that. We did indeed recognize that that is not owner occupied, though it is a building that is occupied by a tenant who at one point was the owner of the building to further
Which
complicate.
one is this?
That's the first one. That's Raleigh. But I'll turn your attention to page 6. That's where I'd like to start my rebuttal.
Page 6.
Yes, that's 1225 Manahan. Now, if you go to page 7, what I did was I went to the city terminal and I found the.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you? I'm having trouble finding,
Oh.
I might be in the wrong document. This is the
pages.
rebuttal evidence.
Yes, and it should be file 2023 on the bottom of the cover page.
So the first line is his rebuttal brief, the middle
Yeah.
line is the photos he was speaking to.
Yes.
And then bottom is the rebuttal for the following file. So we're gonna be looking at the first one that's listed.
Oh, it's the first one, okay. I saw rebuttal, I went to the third one. I'm in the wrong document. I apologize. It wasn't making sense.
Yeah. Okay, so it should be page 6 of that document. Now, so the assessment department is using 1570. So we investigated that lease, and what we found, you can see on page 7 that the registered owner is ED Black Consulting Incorporated. So with that information, we went to the company's office and we ran a search for the directors of ED Black Consulting Incorporated and found the name that you see circled near the bottom of the page. Okay, so then we went back to the terminal in the city of Winnipeg and we saw that the tenant liable for taxes for this premise is called Creative Spaces Limited. With that information, we went back to the company search to find the directors and officers of that entity, and you'll see that they're the same. They're the same as the owner of the real estate, so we consider this to be not arm's length. Okay. So that's Manahan. Now, Melnick is interesting. It's at the time that we're looking at here, it was owner occupied. I interviewed the previous owner. So the owner built the property. He owns the transmission shop on the same property, and he was using that 2 of those 4 units for his own use. Now, on that top photo, you can see a sign asking for advertising space. I called that number, and it was related to a company called GW Spray Foam. So that's how I got a hold of the old owner. He had consequently sold the property, so he put me in touch with the leasing agent. I spoke to the leasing agent, and he told me that the current owner, who's not the same as the previous owner, is actually occupying 2 of the units. And the last 2 units were on a month-to-month basis, and they were induced with free rental periods, which would bring the net effect of below $10 per square foot. He did not give me an exact number, but he was kind enough to speak to me about that. And that is, it's interesting too, because it does not appear to be a business assessment premise associated with this space. though it's known as 197 Melnick, and it's also on the same realty rules. So there is something atypical about that building, and I just wanted to point that out. But the main thrust here is that 1225 Manahan is confirmed to be non-arm's length. So I just wanted to submit that with those documents. Thank you.
Okay. And you'll speak to the photos in your
Sure.
main brief?
Yep. Okay. So if we want to just have a look at these.
Barbara, you have any questions on the rebuttal of it?
No, I'm good, thank you.
I have none, thank you.
Okay, I have none, so then I guess you can proceed with your main brief.
Okay. And would you like me to include the photos as part of the main brief? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. So here we are at 615 Mission Street. Once again, we have a rentable area of 22,560 square feet. Now we've got one story plus the mezzanine with a reference date of April 1, 2016. The assessment department has modeled a assessment of $2,689,000. And we're suggesting that a value of no more than $2,234,000 is appropriate. So if you'll come with me to page 4, you can see a little, see where we are here. This is a storage warehouse at 615 Mission. It's just south of the railroad tracks. This is, of course, the industrial section of Old St. Boniface. The surrounding properties would generally be considered older and industrial use in nature. As I've mentioned, Loveday Mushroom Farms is approximately 250 meters from the door of the closest building of the subject and about a stone's throw from the property line. So it is right across the street. We would consider this a negative externality or site influence acting upon the property. The first permit to improve the vacant land was issued in March of 17, and the first occupancy permit was issued in January of 18. The accessible land area is 2.9 acres. The plan area is 19,200 square feet. And it does appear, as we've recognized here, that the city's included the mezzanine space at the same rental rate as the main floor space in the calculation. So, as I alluded to in my cross-examination, the market does not generally place a value on mezzanine space, as evidenced by the owner's rent roll, where he only talks about the plan area. So we've applied a rate equivalent to half of the main floor space to account for the mezzanine space as it is there and accessible. We do have to put a value on it, so we've taken half of our main floor space and applied it as a fractional rate to the mezzanine space. Once again, the current improvements are comprised of a series of 3 wood frame rigid steel warehouse buildings. They have 20-foot wall heights with 18-foot clear ceilings. Again, generally considered low for new industrial construction. The subject site is rectangular, total accessible area of 2.9 acres, and it is zoned M3. We have plans to construct 2 additional buildings on the site sometime in the future. So what we've done is we've captured the excess land with an upward adjustment in our calculation to reflect the combined floor plates of both of these future developments. And we use the purchase price as the best indicator of value for this land as vacant. Okay, page 5, got some of my photos. These are also marketing photos that show the interiors. You can see basically what it looks like. And actually, well, I'll do that at the end. I'll look at some of my photos. Now, in terms of the rentable area, we do not dispute the 22,560 square feet. 1,600 square feet is the leasable main floor area. Approximately 280 square feet of loft or mezzanine space is included. So again, we have agreed with the 22,560 square feet, albeit with separate rates attributed to the main floor and the mezzanine spaces. Okay, so in terms of the market rent, the subject property has been valued by the Assessment and Taxation Department with an April 1, 2016 potential market rent of $203,940, which comes to $9.04 per square foot to the entirety of the 22,560 square feet of leasable area. Now, of course, there were no leases in the property in 2016, so we've looked to the market to determine a fair market rent, and the following comps were considered. One on Wilkes, that's 2005, larger area, and it's a lease that goes from 7 to 17, and that's at $870 per square foot. We've got another one in McDermott, again, that's at 868. We have one on Lowson with a mezzanine that comes to $6.80 per square foot, similar wall heights, and another one on Lowson at $6.92 per square foot. So with all these factors taken into consideration, we come to an average rent of $7.78 with a median of $7.80. Now we tried to pick rents that were indicative of the type of tenant pool that might be attracted to this type of property. So our first comp here is a person who does closets, custom closets. The second one is somebody who does soundproofing and insulation. We've got trucking and cartage on the third. And then on the fourth, that is a firm that does electrical work. So based on the above, we have applied $850 to the main floor and $425, it's a fractional rent, to the mezzanine space, which gives us a rent of $787 per square foot. So we've looked at that and said, well, $787 is what we come to. We round that to $8 per square foot, and that is what we will apply in our calculation. So in terms of the vacancy and collection loss, we've seen that there's a large amount of vacancy in this space at the reference date, and the city has applied a rate of 5%. We have applied a rate of 10%, and we believe that's a fair upward adjustment that captures the factual circumstance of a fictionalized property, which deserves an elevated level of vacancy for a ramp-up or marketing period. And it's a reasonable application, and that is in keeping with the methodology that we've applied in similar circumstances. I reference a property located at 1180 Wilkes, and I've included on page 19 a certificate of agreement between the city and our firm showing that a new building ought to have a reasonable ramp-up period, and it is the same parameter where we go from 5% to 10 just for this cycle. We are not disputing the shortfall rate. Again, we agree with the non-recoverable expenses and the structural reserve at 7%. Now, in terms of the cap rate, I will point you to our detailed cap rate study. Now, A-grade investment by our study with inputs and calculations show a range of 6.25% to 7%. So we recognize that there are some negative externalities here. The proximity to the mushroom farm is certainly one. The very low ceiling height is another. And so we thought about how a prudent investor might see this. And we thought, well, an adjustment somewhere between a 6.25 and 7 is appropriate. We're not saying it's a B grade, we're saying it's an A grade investment property, but it ought to be, some of these factors ought to be captured. So we have applied a cap rate of 6.75, which will be used in our calculation. The excess land that I referenced earlier, the way that we've come to the excess land adjustment is we looked at the sales listing and the history. We see that property was listed for over a year at an asking price of $599,000. That's for 4 acres. It was eventually purchased in June of 16 for $516,000. I have the instrument number here. And that total site acre of 4.06 acres or 128,232 square feet equates to a sales price of $4.06 per square foot. We mentioned that the developer does plan to add 2 uniform buildings to the site, each with a floor plate of 6,400 square feet. So with this information, we believe that it's fair to apply an upward adjustment. The calculation of that excess land is $51,968, and we've rounded it to $52,000. So with all of that said, we come to our workup on page 11, and you can see that we come to a value with those inputs of $2,234,000, and we do respectfully submit that this board adjust value to reflect the market reality of this property. And again, that value ought to be $2,234,000. My appendix includes photos of our lease comps, starting on page 14, going through to 17. Again, another photo of the subject property. And the certificate that I mentioned earlier is included. Page 21 is the response to the income and expense, showing that there's no economic profit or income during the appropriate year. And then we have the assessor's workup. Now, just very quickly, I'll show you the inspection photos. If you can click through that, I'll show you what one of these present physical condition is. This is July 28th. Jason, do you have a copy of this?
Yeah, I have a copy.
Okay, good. Okay. Are we all on page?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see this is unit 9. This is the front door. You walk in, there's we'll call it a reception area. There's another photo on page 3 showing the view outward from the back of the unit. From there, you go through a door, through a small corridor leading to a very basic washroom. And out that door, you end up in the warehouse space with that mezzanine, which is pictured here. So I want to make sure we're all aware of exactly what we're talking about here. That mezzanine space is included. We've got the floor area, and so I just wanted to show you exactly what it looks like inside. So, barring any questions, that is my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brown?
On your page 11, you're using a 6.55% cap.
Yeah, no, that should be 6.75. But that's fine. That's actually, yeah, no, that's fine. 6.5. So I guess we're not disputing that on this one. That would be.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions, Bob?
Yes, please. Just to confirm, Mr. Brown, no, pardon me, Mr. Story.
Yes.
So you did mention you were using 6.75, but on page 11, your workup is in agreement with the assessor at 6.55? Is that
Correct? Yes, that is correct.
okay? Thank you. That's my only question.
Okay, Jeff, any questions?
I have none. Thank you.
Okay, so your difference is the rental rate, 10% vacancy as of the date of adding to the roll.
And Mr. Story has excess land that we don't.
And I have an excess land adjustment.
Okay. I have no questions then. Is there a summation either party wishes to do?
Nothing.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go on to the same property for the 2020. And we'll get deja vu all over again. Non-recoverables.
All right.
I won't.
We just, so it's item 6 there, Bob.
Bear with me, please. Item 6. So we're dealing with 2020 supplementary, and I will have to track this down. Bear with me. And I do have it in front of me. Thank you.
Okay, so you may begin, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number 2024, roll number 0605083000. Address once again is 615 Mission Street, defending a 2020 assessment of $2,841,000. Obviously, the same building as the preceding file, so I will skip all the attributes and go right to my rent comparables on page 3. We have 8 comparables for this evidence, all similar size to the subject units, ranging from 1,500 square feet up to 3,185. All leases started before the reference period. Buildings are all similar age and wall height as the subject. And we can see rents ranging from $8.75 up to $18. Following page, page 4, using a slightly higher rent than the last cycle of 2 cents per square foot, so $9.06. Once again, with the 5% vacancy, of course, with the 2% expenses for this cycle, $3.75 per square foot shortfall, and the 6.55 cap, yielding the value of $2,841,000 rounded. Once again, the following documents are all the same as the previous evidence. So based on that, we ask that the assessment be confirmed at $2,841,000. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Story?
Yes, just a few. Okay, so just very quickly here, I do have questions again about your rental comps. Now, did you investigate these to determine that they were indeed appropriate?
Once again, these briefs were made months ago. I can't recall.
So something that is very interesting to me, a client of ours is at 1856 degrees. Now that's a sale and leaseback that occurred in 2010. Are you aware of that?
Which property was that?
That's 1856 degrees. That's the assessor comp number 6.
56 degrees?
Yeah. And that was submitted to your office as part of our 2018 Realty appeal.
That's a 2017 lease.
It jumped out to us because it's a sale and lease back, and that's a window and door showroom. That shouldn't be a 1-year lease. That's a sale and lease back. So I'm wondering if you were aware of that or if that had crossed your desk.
I'm just looking at their return. They're showing it as a net lease. They haven't indicated whether it's owner occupied or not.
Okay. So you weren't aware of that. That's fine.
I mean, we rely on the information that they give us, and they did not indicate anywhere on this that it is owner occupied. They indicated that it's a net lease, and they gave us the terms.
Okay. I suppose I have a rebuttal again for this one, but I can speak to it now if you'd like. It's just one property here. That's 1149 Manahan. So that is, well, I can speak to it after. I suppose it's the same process that we did for the first cycle where we looked at the company's records office, and it is owner occupied. I've confirmed that. I can speak to that after. Now, one thing that I did notice, 191 Melnick. We spoke about that on the last file. Did it seem odd to you that all of these units 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all signed on the same day for the same lease term for the same rate?
I didn't notice that.
Okay. Would that seem a little bit odd to you and maybe worthy of further investigation?
I can look into it right now. Once again, we rely on the information we receive. Often these aren't filled out, I guess, correctly. So yeah, once again, looking at the 2016 income and expense mailer, no indication of owner occupied. They show 4 tenants: JK Rubber, Gondor Group, RPM Graphics, DCC Hale. No indication of owner occupied. They're showing monthly rents, property tax recoveries, and maintenance expense recoveries. So on the surface, these look like net rents, but of course, you have evidence that they are not.
Right, and they're, sorry, did I hear you correctly? They're month to month?
Doesn't say that. There is a monthly rent of $1,500 per unit.
Okay, that's okay. Now, I have a question about 171 Cole that I couldn't get to the bottom of. Now that there are 3 tenants over 2 buildings, and it's safe to say that they're in the business of tools, power tools.
That's what it appears, yeah.
Okay. Now, do you know if that tenant, 171 Cole, which is a tool repair shop, effectively, do you know if they have any relationship to either Weber Supplies or Tool World?
Are they in the same building?
They're in the same building, yeah. And I know that Tool World and Weber Supplies have a relationship, but I wasn't sure about iTech,
Yeah, also, all we know is what the,
what they submit.
yeah.
Okay. Now, that building, it would appear in doing some research, it looks like potentially that it may have been built for this. I can't confirm that, but that's how it appears. Now, if that is indeed true, that $12 rent, might that include some amortization of cost to build or inducements or something like that? Is that reasonable?
I'm unaware.
Okay. That's fine. Again, now what's interesting here is the parameters are effectively the same. I think the shortfall is slightly different. Just again, these are all modeled inputs, correct?
Correct. I believe shortfall was what, 265 the previous day?
It was 360 to 375.
Correct.
Okay, so what's interesting is the only material difference, the rent is virtually the same that you've used in both, but by changing by removing the expense ratio, by removing the 5%, that actually increases the value by a fair bit, does it not?
Yeah, about just under 200,000.
Right. Okay.
So less than 10%.
Right. Okay, and we've talked about that issue a number of times, so that's fine. The cap rate remains the same. Now, for this cycle, the city is also not, or for this report, there's no backup evidence to support any of these cap rate inputs.
That's correct.
Okay. And that's fine. I think the balance of this is the same as the last docket. And again, we see the vacancy is well north of 46%, but we're not arguing that today, so we'll leave that be. And I suppose those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, any questions?
None, thank you.
Bob, any questions?
I am good, thank you.
So you use the same cap rate, it's unchanged between the two assessment cycles?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, no more questions on that, so Mr. Story, you can proceed.
Sure. May I speak very quickly to the rent comp on the
Okay.
rebuttal evidence? Just very quickly. It's just the first one.
That's still in the rebuttal.
That's a different document for the rebuttal.
Third document in the rebuttal file. So many documents.
I know.
Okay, do you have the rebuttal on this, Bob?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then you can proceed on the rebuttal.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so on the second page, I'll show you very quickly. The assessment department used $18 per square foot as part of the rent comps to develop the rental rate for our subject. So that sounded an alarm for me, so I looked into it. The BA firstly shows that it's $847 per square foot. So the model is showing that, which was interesting. But I still thought that there was something amiss. So again, I went to the city terminal. This is on page 3. And I found the property tax notice. It's showing that numbered company is the registered owner for that property. So again, now we go to the company's office and look for a record of this is page 4, a record of the directors and officers of that corporation. And we see 2 names, same last name. Okay, page 5, we get the business tax notice from the city terminal, and it shows us the tenant liable for taxes, the taxable entity, and they're called Ambassador Sales 1986 Incorporated. We go back to the company search and run a check on that, Ambassador Sales 1986, and you can see that the directors for that company are the same as the directors for the realty. So this should not be considered arm's length and should not be considered as part of this exercise. I've spoken about the others. I think that's all I want to say about the rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay. On to your main brief. Any questions on the rebuttal evidence, Bob?
I'm good, thank you.
Jeff?
Done, thanks.
I guess I should ask you too. Do you have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead on your.
Okay. So we've heard all about this building. Effectively, nothing much has changed. The 2020 assessment proposed by the city is $2,841,000. We are suggesting $2,425,000. The details remain the same, of course. The photos are the same. You've seen the interiors. So effectively, we've adjusted our vacancy down to 5%. We thought 10% was appropriate in the first cycle in order to capture that lease-up period, but now we are not disputing the 5%. The rentable area is fine. Now, in terms of the market rent, I've provided a number of comps here. We've got a couple on McDermott that are similar. They are larger, to be certain, but they do provide similar utility, and they do attract the same. They're competing for the same types of tenants, which I think is important. Comp number, for example, comp number 1 is a waterproofing insulation person that we talked about earlier. We have a sign manufacturer. We have a furniture studio. We have somebody who works in electrical supply. And then the 5th one is a filing folder and office supplies organization or entity. So those rents range from $615 a square foot up to $868 per square foot, giving us an average of $753 and a median of $775. Now, as a point of interest, I have included in my appendices a listing for space that's quite similar. It's in Don Valley Parkway. That's in the RM of Springfield. It's very similar. It's brand new, rigid steel, 25% build out, and they're asking $825 per square foot. I include that for interest, but it does support our position. So with all these points taken into consideration and applying the fractional rent to the main floor, we're using $890 per square foot on the main, $445 per square foot on mezzanine, which gives us an average of $8.24. So we round that to $8.25, and we will use that in our calculation. And that makes sense with our previous rental rate from the past assessment. The shortfall is not in dispute at $375. Now, the non-recovered expenses, we do continue to apply an allowance of 7% of effective market income in our valuation. Again, this is based on the standard allowance of 2% for structural reserve, and 5% is a stabilized allowance for non-recoverable expenses that arise in the competent management and operation of the property. Now, I've included our non-recoverable study, which you've all seen a number of times, but I think just as a point that I'd like to make here, when we look at a property that's being leased up and we look at space marketing costs and commissions, we have to recognize that when we ask somebody to go and lease this space for us, the commissions are paid upfront for dollars that will be collected at a later date. So I think it's important that we recognize that the market does recognize an erosion of the effective gross income for space marketing and for commissions, and that's particularly a salient point when we're talking about a new build that requires that ramp up in marketing period. So we will continue to include that 7%. The cap rate, again, 6.75. That's what it should have been in the last one, but that was my error. And for the same reasons, we do have a study that I have included for you with calculations and inputs, and we see that the Class A industrial grade office, or investment grade industrial space, I should say, excuse me, ought to have a cap rate of somewhere between 6.25% to 7%. So we are saying that 6.75% is appropriate. This is in the old Mission Industrial area of St. Boniface. We have the negative influence of the mushroom farm right across the street, and we do have lower ceiling heights that are, as we look at the durability of this income going forward, when most of the new builds are north of 20, 25 feet, that would give an next potential investor some pause when we're looking at the shorter ceiling heights. So without belaboring it too much, we are using 6.75%. We are using the same excess land adjustment. I don't believe that's in question, as the city has not provided one. So with all of these points taken into consideration, we come to a requested value of $2,425,000, and we do respectfully submit that the 2020 supplementary realty assessment ought not to exceed $2,425,000. In my appendix, again, I include my comparables. You can have a look at them. I have that listing that I mentioned in Springfield, just for interest's sake. And then the rest of it is just basically the property details, as well as the VA records showing the space does include the mezzanine and the rent roll showing the vacancy, though vacancy is not in dispute for this particular file. So far, any questions? That is my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brown, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your rents listed on page 9.
Yep.
These are the subject rents? The 787.
That's correct. Yes, we did include the subject rents. Sorry, I skipped over that to give you an indication of value. Now, at this reference date, we did have some rents to look at, whereas in the previous file we didn't. So when we use the 1,880 square feet, we come to an average of 825, and that again is supported by the comparables that we've provided to you.
Okay, so the rent rolls shown on page 31, 32.
Yeah.
I'll note that the base rents on the rent roll are higher than what you're indicating.
Right, and that's because as we mentioned earlier,
okay.
There's no mezzanine included there, and so further to that point, the market doesn't tend to place a value on mezzanine space, but as the assessment department has included it, we believe that it should be assessed as well. It's there, but it shouldn't be assessed at the same rate that the main floor is, so that's why we use the fractional rent.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Those are all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Jeff, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Rob, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Story, looking at your workup and looking at your land adjustment at $52,000, I know that it hasn't changed from the last 2019 workup of yours that reflected a 2-year earlier assessment cycle. Would this land value not have gone up between 2016 and 2018?
That's a great question. This land sat vacant for many, many years, and the utility was for this specific developer. So that's a question that I thought of, and is there an appropriate time adjustment? I would say no. I don't think that that there's an adjustment that's necessary for this property based on the time. It was a piece of land that sat vacant for a long time. It sold at a discount. So the idea that would have appreciated, that seems illogical to me, respectfully. And I think that using that value provides utility to this specific developer. So no, I have not provided an upward adjustment, but I do appreciate the question, and I did consider it and deemed it reasonable to use the same.
Thank you. And my second question is in reference to your cap rate at 6.75. You made reference to lower ceiling heights. This whole new build construction seems to be catering to tenants that do not require a higher ceiling height in their operation. So I'm wondering why you would consider making an adjustment for that.
It's catering to tenants who don't require the ceiling height, or if it's attracting a certain type of tenant, which would limit the larger market. So when we see what's happening, particularly in the RMs, we're seeing ceilings far, far above 20 feet. So I think that what it does is it actually limits the potential for tenancy going forward. That would be my position on that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and I have no questions, so submission by anybody?
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on to your last property.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, could I ask for a 5-minute break, please?
Okay, sure. We'll have a 5-minute break then.
Thank you.
I'll call the meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda is 1397 Buffalo Place, Realty for 2020. So you can begin, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is file number 20-4, roll number 0309300325. Once again, located at 1397 Buffalo Place. The department has a recommendation for this property, so I'll go through it line by line. Starting with 40E, which is currently at $5,029,000. We're recommending that be reduced to $4,957,000. The next line, 40T, $1,201,000, that will remain the same. And the third and final line, which is the 60T, currently at $3,853,000, will be reduced to $3,172,000. So combined, the offer or the recommendation is at $9,330,000.
How do you feel about that?
Pending climate approval, we accept.
All right, Bob, do you have any questions on the, first of all, what's the basis of the reductions?
It was vacancy. Yeah, vacancy.
Okay. Questions, Bob?
Yes, thank you. Just to confirm, Mr. Brown, revising class code 40 exempt to 4,957,000. The next line is class code 40, pardon me, taxable, down to remains the same at 1,201,000. And the last line is class code 60, taxable at 3,172,000, equals a recommendation at $9,330,000.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, any questions?
I have none, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sweet. All right, then we will move on to Mr. Newfield.
Sorry, we might just short recess again.
We could proceed without it.
Minutes.
Okay, I'll call the meeting back order. Can you swear Mr. Newfield in?
State your name.
Rocky, no.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, so we have 1455 Buffalo Place. Agenda items 8 and 9 for 2018 and 19. So given that's the same reference here, we'll hear them at once. So if there's any difference between the 2 years, let us know, but otherwise we'll hear it as one. So you can proceed, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So these are file numbers 20-16 and 20-17. All evidence contained in both briefs are the same. So I'll just go over one of them. Roll number 0309152200, located at 1455 Buffalo Place. This was a supplementary assessment for an addition to an existing building. Defending a 18 and 19 assessments of $12,668,000. The property consists of 6 buildings with 13 premises ranging 1 and 2 story. Built ranging from 1957 to 2018, with wall heights ranging from 12 to 27. Total land area of 504,847, with a leasable area of 132,265. Land to plan ratio of 3.94. On page 2, there is a list of subject property leases. These are what was reported by the owner. All the leases start before the reference date of 2016, and we can see various leased areas ranging from 1,151 all the way up to 19,600. And the rents range from $4.75 up to $14. Page 3 and 4, there is a bunch of rental comps. Made this evidence when I was working from home, so I think I had some extra time. I won't go through them all. There's a wide range of areas. So some of these are in the same building. You'll see 62 square build. We've got the 2 Murray Park rows of the same building. There's a bunch of Murray Parks down at the bottom. But anyway, the rents are ranging from $550 up to $1350, I believe, or $16 on the second page. Income workup on page 5. So you'll see the different premises there. There's a wide range of rents here due to the different years that were built, the different heights and the different uses. There's office and industrial, flex, etc. So you see the rents on the subject for the assessment are ranging from a low of $5.38 up to $10.54, yielding gross potential of $1,085,527.
Do you have an average rent?
I can calculate it. I can real quick.
Usually you make assessment.
I do usually. I apologize. $8 and used the model vacancy of 4%. Oh, yes. 7% expenses for the website we were working in, and 7.5% capitalization rate, yielding the assessment of $12,668,000. Photograph starting on page 9. So this is located on Buffalo, just off McGilvery. Aerial photograph. I'll note, if you look at the aerial photograph at the bottom of page 9, on the north side, you'll see that that's the newer building. And you'll note that on the very north side, there is a building going right up to the property line. If we look on the following page, on page 10, 2016, that addition to the building is not there. This is the reason for the supplementary assessment today. Exterior shot of the original building on page 11. This is the 1957 portion. Page 12, there is a small garage located on the roll number. And then at the bottom of page 12 is on the left-hand side is the first part of the addition. So this one was built, I believe, in 2014 or 15. First General Service is the tenant on the left-hand side of that building. We can see that on page 13. Some interior photographs of that unit on the following 2 or 3 pages. Page 14 shows their boardroom, lunchroom, an industrial space. On page 15. There's a leasing ad on page 16. I took the base rent out because it was a post reference. But on page 18, we get a clear view of the building, how it's lighted up. So we have First General, the vacant space that was for summer 2020 in the middle, and then that new addition on the very right-hand side, which is occupied by the CRA. Permits on page 20. So 2013 was the first section of the new building. I believe it was completed in 14 or 15. That had a permit value of $4,293,500. Following permit was for the addition, which is why we're here today. In 2018, I will note on the following page, page 22, there is a value of construction for this addition at $4,447,575, and it shows the square footage breakdown below that. There's some site plans on page 24 and 25 and 26. 27 just shows all the different permits taken out on this building. These range from 2000 up to 2020 or 2019. A lot of permits. There's various types of permits: occupancy, interior alteration, construct new interior alterations. So yeah, they've been pretty active on this building. Have the income and expense statements as provided by the owner on page 28 through to the end. I'll note the rent roll starts on page 31. Rents are showing about 3/4 of the way across, ranging from $475 up to $1075 on the first page. Obviously, the newer spaces are getting higher rents. On page 32, continuation of the rent roll. Note there's a $14 per square foot rent on that page, $11.75 and $5.50. So the rents are kind of all over the place, obviously reflecting different stages of effective years. And then on the final page, page 33, 3 more rents showing $13.50, or sorry, $12.50, $9.75, and $9.50. Based on that, we ask that the 2018 and 19 assessments be confirmed at $12,668,000. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Phelps?
Yes. How much, sorry, the supplementals for the new space and do you have a breakdown of the old space versus the new space for the supplemental?
I don't have that offhand. I do have the order. This was heard in 2018 before the addition.
I just in your files, like, okay, if you take your rent rolls on pages 31 to 33, it adds up to 97,615 square feet. So I'm just trying to determine how many square feet you've attributed and where to the addition to get 132,265.
So you're saying you added up these rent rolls and it was what, 97,000?
Well, I mean, it hasn't been discussed in evidence yet, but there is a discrepancy on your evidence between the 2 years.
Is there?
Yeah, and just in adding it up and on what we have as well.
In what regards is there a discrepancy?
In the next
in 2020.
2020, you're showing the rent roll shows 132.49 with everybody in there.
132.
With the addition on.
We're at what, 132,265?
Right. And so if you add up the numbers on pages 33 to 35 of the next set, you get 134.29.
Okay.
And that's the number that we have managed. Now, what I think the discrepancy is, and if everybody doesn't mind me reading ahead, on page 5 of your 2018 brief, you show the government agency at 34,650.
Yes.
Now on page 35 of the rent roll in the 2020, it's actually 32,814.
Is there mezzanine space?
Well, I'm asking the questions. They're renting 32,814 on the rent roll when they've actually moved in, and you're at 34,650.
My guess is that there's mezzanine space.
You're guessing, you don't know? And if there were, why wouldn't the rent?
Okay, so permit on page 21.
Yeah.
Construct new 34,650 square foot, 1-story addition to existing warehouse.
So you took the permit, not the as-bills then?
As far as I'm concerned, I didn't put this on the roll. But the permit says on page 23 too, new floor area, all areas. This is filled out by the architect.
Sure, but the point is the permit isn't the same as as-built, is it?
Generally it is.
No, well, they can make changes during the time. And then what about the concept of doing a BOMA measurement after it's made? They don't necessarily rent the physical area. There could be part of it is a mechanical that's unrentable, correct?
It's possible.
Okay. So, but I mean, your evidence later is going to show, both my evidence and your evidence is going to show that that space was only 32,814 that they're renting.
Well, we don't, I mean, that sometimes the lease doesn't include the mezzanine
Yeah,
space.
the assessment department's not out there doing property management and measuring, are you?
Well, somebody inspected this property.
No, they just took the permit and added it on the physical area without checking what the lease
I
said and
can't
what
say
the
that for
process
sure.
was.
We do measure sometimes, and it's possible this was measured. Yeah, we don't know.
You don't, but your ultimate answer is you're just not sure of the discrepancy, are you? If you had an answer, it would be an assumption, correct?
Well, I think we're all assuming here. I don't think you went and measured it yourself, did you?
No, but we brought in the documents from the property management firm. We both did.
Well, I'm saying that space could be attributed to mezzanine space.
Were they earning income on it?
Is it usable space?
Are they earning income on it?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've,
No, we're not, because the point is if you have rentable space that's not earning income, you can't add it to the building and say it's earning extra income.
okay, well, that's your evidence and you can present that.
No, okay, so but you don't have any explanation, anything, how about we leave it at that? Is it fair to say that you don't have an answer for that?
We're going off the permit value
Okay.
or the permit size.
In regard to the lease types, are you characterizing these as net leases?
No, those are just the subject leases in place.
Yeah, that's what I meant, pages 31 to 33. Are you characterizing them as net or are they, do you feel that they might be a mix of
Well,
net and semi-gross?
If you look at the top, it says rent,
Right,
and then there's rent with the $ per foot year. And then to that, there's other charges. So
Right.
to me, that would be a net rent in that column, and the other charges would be.
well, for what I mean is, for example, let's look at the first one on page 31, Carlson Commercial. The camera recovery is $2 a foot, and you go down to Ultraspan, the camera recovery is $3.24. You see that?
Yep.
And their tax recoveries are different.
Yeah, well, I don't know what kind of system they have worked out, but
Well,
there is a base rent. Generally, that's the net.
And we can go through all of them and they all differ. So there are people paying different levels of.
Perhaps they have access to different common areas. That's all speculation.
Okay, so you don't know for sure. Okay. Now, in regard to the income that they provided you, which is ends on page 30, this is fair to say that this was before the addition?
Correct.
Okay. And the user types that are in this building, how are you characterizing them? Have you been to the building?
I went to this building before the new addition, I believe, with your son Bram. That was in like 2015 or 16, I believe.
Right.
So it's been a while, but I have been to this site.
So they're a mix of different users. There were some industrial users. The addition is probably considered office.
It's flex, yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, but
There's a wide variety of different tenants. There's a garage on this site.
right. So it's not all one user type. It's not all industrial. It's not all office.
Wide range of effective years, a wide range of ceiling heights, rendered of tenants. Yes.
Okay. And the basement. Who's renting the basement? Do you recall?
Unaware.
Wasn't it the Charity MS Society at the time?
It's possible. They do have a sign on the front of the building.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay, Jeff.
Oh, sorry, I missed the page. Don't worry, it won't take long. In regard to the selection of capitalization rate, was this all model generated?
Correct.
And would it come from page 7? Which of these? You're an industrial assessor. That's your division.
I'm hotel and industrial.
Right. Well, it's not a hotel, right?
It is not a hotel.
So, is it fair to say that these were assigned an industrial set of parameters for cap rates and shortfall?
That's correct.
So we have a 360 shortfall, which is an industrial, and a 4% vacancy, which is industrial,
Correct.
and a 7.5% cap rate, which is industrial.
Correct.
Now, considering the characterization of this space being kind of a multi-user building, rambling, a lot of like MS Society is not industrial, they're
No, of
office.
course not.
Was there any consideration to looking at some of the parameters for the suburban office?
I mean, the majority of this site is industrial, so that was the default. I mean, without carving it up into different income streams, we just went with the industrial.
Right, and but for example, a shortfall of $3.60 a foot is not supported by the cost that they're charging their tenants, is it? And again, I'll just quickly look at the one I was first looking at on Ultraspan Technology, 28 cents for management, $3.24 for CAM, $1.41 for taxes, and $2.32 for utilities. In this particular case, the costs, which would be attributable usually to shortfall, exceed $7, correct?
On office property?
Yeah.
Yeah, office property, of course, would have.
Right. So, but in this building, it's a mix of different costs. The industrials might carry a smaller shortfall, but the office could carry a higher, couldn't they?
That's correct.
Okay. Sorry, those are my questions.
Okay. You sure?
No.
Sure, give you a chance. Jeff, any questions?
Just a quick one. So we're the leasable area, then you've indicated 132,265.
Correct.
And then you said the average rent $8.21, $8.21.
8207, so rounded
8270.
8207. So rounded to 821.
I see. Okay. The numbers weren't quite rounding, but that makes sense. Okay, no other questions.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
Yes, please. Mr. Brown, how many square feet were added in the addition?
Well, according to the permit on page 23 and on page 21,
Okay.
34,650 square feet.
Okay. 34,650. Okay. And what is that? It's, I believe it's the CRA. Is that correct? What is the lease rate on that portion?
So on my income workup, it is $9.66 on page 5.
Okay. And but your blended rate, just to confirm, is $8.21, including the addition
Correct.
on your assessment value. And on page 28, the income and expense statement, the net operating income at $721,057 does not reflect the income for the addition.
That's correct.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
And I have no questions, so you can see.
Well, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. The property is a very strange, sort of rambling property. Began its life as one of the Pollard banknote properties, and that particular business was moved to another building, and it was put on the market to lease. When I first looked at this building, probably I think 15 years ago, it was predominantly an industrial building with a lot of outside storage, and the ownership built two buildings on the site. One, I think 2007, and the other, the subject of our increase here. And those additions were marketed as flex, but occupied as office. And so what we have is the old building has mostly industrial, with the exception of MS Society, who have an office space. And then the new portions are predominantly office. There are some of the new building operators who have an element of industrial to them, in terms of small storage areas for First General Services, for example, had a small storage area for some of their equipment and tools. But it is, I would characterize it today as predominantly office. Now, the income we're using, there's another very interesting confusion here, is we did put in the same income statement, and the net income as full prior to the addition was 721, and we're using 719 because if you'll note that there is some interest revenue in there on page 3. So, and that's as full. What happened to the next couple of years of statements, which you're going to likely look at in the next hearing for the next year, is that one of the tenants requested an early termination, and they ended up paying in advance for the balance of their term. Then and that all went in I think the 2017 income, and then in 2018 it was vacant and showed no income. So we did have some stabilization to do. So as not to confuse you, that's the story right now. So we used 719,231 as full, and then the new space is 32,814 square feet. We manage the property. I've seen the lease. I did not provide a copy, but of course, the ownership and the management did do their due diligence and send that information to the assessor via the request for information on income and expenses. And so they've done their job. There's no extra duty for them to come and tell the assessor that they got it wrong, and it's not our requirement, except under appeal. Now we have to fix it. We provided the right information. And again, you can read ahead and you'll see that both the assessor and myself are reporting 32,814 square feet for HMQ, Her Majesty the Queen, for the government agency, which the assessor is putting at 34,650. I haven't seen the plans or the as-bills, but I have 100% confidence. A professionally managed property, we don't lose space. That's all there is. So we've added it in, and now the rent in post-reference is higher than we have in here for the supplemental. And so what we had looked at to establish a rent at $850 were the rents paid by the other tenants in the office areas that were already built up. So as to indicate that some sort of consistency in those spaces. And you can see in the rent rolls on the ones that are actually net leases that that's the number that would be in place. So that brings us to a net income of $998. Now we're using a blended vacancy rate, office and industrial. We're not inventing it. This is the assessment department's office S, as well as the industrial. We are adding in non-recoverables at 5% because they exist. The statement is loaded with non-recoverables. There's no question that they have those expenses. And the shortfall, we again are blending at $7. As I mentioned, the entire building is a $7 overall recovery rate, and that would be what the shortfall should be. So, I mean, the options that the assessor would have with the way they make properties up is, I suppose they could have had split revenue streams. That was their option to take. They didn't do it. However, we can't call this industrial and then put those parameters on it. As to capitalization, I think this bumps the capitalization rate upwards, not downwards. Mixed usage plus office, which is a riskier investment, believe it or not, these days than, or even back then, as far as industrial versus office. And we have given you our comparables in the back pages. I certainly would not characterize this as flex. If this is built in stages, a rambling building. So what we have, to sum up, the correct square footage. Secondly, characterization is predominantly office and relying on actual income. And those are our numbers. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Brown?
Just a couple, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So your calculations based on using the net income of 719,231?
That's the old section, yes.
Okay, and then you added 278,919 for the new section?
Correct.
Okay, where did you get that 719,231?
Well, the 719 is from the statement page I mentioned already, page 5, net income 721. And then we took off the interest revenue, page 3 of 1,825, which is not real estate income. And you'll note that, yes, so that's where it came from.
Okay. So that would already be net of vacancy and reserve. Would that not be accurate?
I just wanted to check something here.
Page 3 shows the vacancy.
Right. I'm looking for our tenant who bought their way out. Just give me 1 second. I did work in trying putting this together sometime back, and then it was postponed. So
Yeah.
now we're testing my memory. I had pulled our billings for the buyout of the lease, and I just want to make sure they were applied to the right year. I was looking for, I told you at the beginning that one of the tenants bought their lease out. And so that income was put in there and then the vacancy was replaced with that. And it was a post-period adjustment. So we ended up treating the vacancy as not existing because it was paid out with cash. And the cash payment was $240,000 or something like that. That ended up covering their lease for the period and then for part of the next period.
Okay, but there's no evidence of that?
No, and I know I had it because I was looking over this and it was on my desk and I don't have that in my file right now that I can find right now. I mean, I can eventually find it, but that's where the adjustment came in.
Okay. You're using 8% cap?
Correct.
This was heard previously for 2018. You're obviously aware that the board put a 7.5 cap on this originally?
Yeah, and then there was the supplemental.
Okay, yep, just.
I didn't agree with that either.
Of course you didn't. Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, so there's a discrepancy between your square footage measurement of the addition and the assessors of about 1,800 square feet. Is there a mezzanine area in this addition?
I haven't been in it. I don't know if there is, and if it were, the owner isn't capturing additional income for it. So so it doesn't reflect in income in any way.
Okay.
I can't imagine. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. What is the current lease rate on this addition?
Current. Sorry. What did you? The lease?
What is the lease on this CRA addition?
Okay. It began in October 2018. And it's a, I believe the face rate is post-reference. Do you want me to answer that?
I think we have to be careful about post-reference.
Right, yeah, but it will get into it. You'll ask in the next hearing anyway.
Okay, and the term of the lease?
I've got it listed as 5 years here, but I'm sure that that's not the case.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And is there a pending muni board on this 2018 board revision decision?
No, because it was replaced by the supplemental.
Okay, and Mr. Brown, maybe I'll direct to you. This assessment became effective in November of 2018. Would that be accurate?
I believe that's correct.
Pardon me?
I believe that's accurate.
So Mr. Neufeld stated that they moved in October, but you probably let a month allowance for move in. So we're talking about maybe 2 months of 2018.
Yeah, I seem to recall that date.
Okay.
I guess the first 10 months is still technically under appeal at the municipal board then.
There doesn't show one in our system.
No?
Okay, that is all my questions. Thank you.
Jeff, any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask frequently, they don't list mezzanine areas in the rent roll, so just show the floor plan.
Well, there's two issues related with that. Oftentimes a tenant can put in their own mezzanine at their own cost and landlord gets no income out of it. The second question would be, what's the BOMA method for accounting for this type of space? And the BOMA method would not include a mezzanine because it's one self-contained commercial unit. And if they view it as an accessory use that an owner put in. So when it goes to list on the market, the standard would be in the Appraisal Institute, in the realtors world, in BOMA, we don't count it. Now, if it adds extra value, it's going to show up in the rent on the base level.
Okay, all right. Submission, Mr. Brown?
No, thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Newfield?
No.
Okay, we will go to 1455, item 10, 1455 Buffalo for the year 2020. Just give everybody a moment to pull up the file. So it's item 10.
Just one. Oh, yes.
Okay, do you have the file there, Bob?
Not quite yet, excuse me here.
It's item number 10.
Okay, I have it now, thank you.
All right, Mr. So you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number 20-15, rule number 0309152200. Once again, 1455 Buffalo Place, defending a 2020 set value of $13,839,000. Once again, the same attributes as the previous property. Once again, on page 3, a wide variety of rental comparisons, similar to the last cycle. I won't go over them, but there is a wide range of net rents, all similar size and age is the subject of. Page 5, we have the income workup for 2020. An average rent of $8.31 on 132,265 square feet. It's a 2.5% vacancy for this cycle, 2% expenses, and a 7.5 cap. This yields the capitalized value of $13,839,000. So similar, all pages up until page 30 are the same as the previous cycle. Obviously, the statement on page 30 is from a different reference period, so this is the 2017. We'll note that the rent roll is also this cycle, And we can see Her Majesty the Queen on page 35. Once again, there is the square footage discrepancy. However, it looks like they're paying $10.25 a square foot. So based on that evidence, we ask that the 2020 assessment be confirmed at $13,839,000. Thank you.
Questions? Mr. Newfield?
Yes, now you brought up page 35, the square footage, 32,814, and you just read out the post-reference lease rate, correct?
Is it post reference? October 1st? Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So you don't mind telling the board that they should disregard that?
I don't mind that. No.
Okay. But just for sake of interest, you will notice something on there, the collections, there's 2 line items recovered on there, and they're not recovering management. You'll notice that there's a possibility that this is a semi-gross lease.
That is possible.
Okay. And we've debated the square footage already, so the board doesn't need to hear it again, I take it.
That's correct.
And, oh, yes, I was going to point out that you've got some lovely pictures here. Where did these come from?
Which pictures?
Well, you've got starting page 13.
So 13, those are Google Street View.
No, I see, yes. I meant.
The interior photograph?
Yes.
I believe those come from First General's website.
Oh, I was going to compliment your photography.
No, those are much better than mine.
Okay. So 17 is some of their First General's workspace in the back that I was talking about earlier. They have a small work area. Okay.
There are remediation.
Okay. Those are my questions.
Hey, Bob, any questions?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, proceed, Mr. Newfield.
Can I have 30 seconds?
Sure, let's start the stopwatch here.
Okay. Sorry, I saw an error in here, and I wanted to correct it.
Okay.
I didn't prepare this original workup. I was involved in working out the calculations on the lease buyout I was telling you. But I noticed in this particular one that is devoid of the lease buyout that there was a something that we should correct. So moving to the statements on page 3, you'll note that there is no more vacancy listed here. This is as full. Moving to page 5, there is a line item, line 6550, leasing commissions of $107,248. Now, this is a non-recoverable expense. And this is one of the ones we're always bringing up. These are existing all the time. In this case, this particular year is 107,000. However, that should not have been included in the net income because that does come out later. So what I have done on page 1 is I've added that back in So the net income where we have it 1,204,994 now becomes 1,109,742. Adding it back in,
What was that number?
1,109,742.
1,109,742.
Yes, rather than 1,002,494, and extending all the way down to the NOI with the same numbers. Now, in there, I am now allowing the non-recoverables because otherwise it would have been a double dipping, actually a triple dip. So we're only going for a single dip now, which is the 47,000 non-recoverables. That's well supported by the 107,000 that was paid. But that brings my NOI upwards to 896,242.
And what does that make your final value?
11,203,025. 112,03025 rounded to 11,203,000. And so this is actual income with a $9 rent for the new tenant and as for additional income for the year. And the same concept again with a mix of valuation parameters for office as well as industrial. And the support for the $9 is of course listed with the number of office rents that we have in our report and by what's being paid on the site. And since the assessor did let it slip out that they're paying 1025 post reference, pointing out that it's a semi-gross lease without recovery of the management cost, that does work out to $9 as a fair amount. Other than that, which we didn't get into, the cap rates. We have a number of caps in the back, and you've seen them all. We've gone through many times on these. So we think that a mix of property types. If this were a pure flex warehouse where every unit was flex, you could see a more competitive cap rate because the concept behind a flex is you lose an industrial tenant, you strip out and put in an office tenant. You're always working with a bay that's 50 or 60 feet wide by 100 feet, and that's the concept behind it. This isn't flex. Part of it is considered flex, part of it is old industrial. So you're carrying some of the old industrial, which would indicate a higher risk rate than a flex. So which is why we put in 8% rather than 7.5% on the actual income. Thank you, that's my presentation.
Any questions, Mr. Brown?
Had one, but I think you kind of addressed it. You're using $7.24 for the old, but I guess you
that's
up that.
yeah,
Okay.
right.
No, that was my. I guess just one more. You've taken the net income off the statement, then you've added for the new.
Yeah. Well, what we've done, we've taken the net income from the statement and
Added in the lease.
and added in the lease as what we our calculation of what it would be at.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
And Jeff, questions? No questions. Thank you. Bob?
No questions, thank you.
Going back to the question that Mr. Brown had for the previous cycle, is there no vacancy in this building?
At this particular snapshot in time, there was none, but there have been ongoing vacancy problems, and we've had a bit of a roller coaster ride on this. It's hit 25%, it's gone to 0, and then back up to 15%, and I'm speaking from experience going back 15 years. So it's an up and down process on this, no consistency. And I attribute that to the style where I have an old building with new additions put on. And generally what we think is the proper way to address this is we'll take a market vacancy and adjust the cap rate accordingly.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes this property. Item 11, 1475 clearance. I'll give everybody a moment to open the files.
Correct, the next three are all.
We gotta shift our thinking. This one there was fondly remembering the 5% onion.
I think I just lost your.
Mr. Chair, I have it now. It's a BA for 1475 Clarence Avenue.
Yeah. You gave it to me, didn't you, or something? Yeah, okay, well, I managed.
I can go off the computer.
Managed to lose them.
The channels.
Okay.
All right, I'll start the timeline. We're on clearance.
Yeah, 1475 clearance.
I've got it. Thanks.
So you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is file 19-5830. 2020 VA assessment, address 1475 Clarence Avenue, business ID 677. We have a total area of all premises at 439,520 square feet. We've applied a overall ARV per square foot of $5.63. The breakdown for this calculation is shown below. We have the base ARV per square foot at $3.50 plus cost to occupy. I'll note that air conditioning was reduced to 20,000 square feet. So we have the base ARV at $1,538,320. We've added the total occupancy cost of $934,187, giving us our total of $2,472,480. Listed below are some rent comparisons. The following page shows location of the subject. This is McGilvery and Chevry in between on Clarence, and then a aerial photograph list shown below that. Third and final page just shows the realty board order. This was confirmed at the Board of Revision, and so based on that, we're asking to confirm the 2020 ARV at $2,472,480.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, just some clarifications here. I'm just looking at your rents. 1345 Redwood. Have you been involved in a discussion on that lease?
I have not.
Okay, so because there's general acceptance in the past that it doesn't represent a transaction for market value.
Okay, I'll make note of that.
Okay, but I can send you the lease. It's just that it was loaded with TI for Bowen's build out.
Okay.
And 140 Otter just seems a little strange. What is that?
That does seem strange. I didn't look into these too much. Very close. Pollard Bank notes, so it's possible. That
Oh, okay, that's an internal rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, he owns that.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that.
Okay. It seemed a bit high, but they make money there, right? So maybe they can afford it. Then the other question, I know you and I discussed 630 Carnahan. There's two sections of new flyer in there. And one is for office at $8 and the other is for industrial at $8 gross.
Okay.
So and I wouldn't fault you on this because I always get them mixed up too. Okay, well, and the last question, of course, is we have appealed this municipal board, correct?
I'm pretty sure you have, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, questions, Bob?
I'm good, thank you.
Jeff?
Except the rental item identified here, distinguished as perhaps not being good comparables. Are the balance of the comparables presented here at arm's length, as far as you know?
As far as I know. Once again, like we rely on the information provided to the owner, by the owner, sometimes it's not accurate. We try to make note of it and take them out, but it doesn't always happen.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no questions, so you can proceed, Mr. Linfield.
Thank you. I'll be real quick on this. Now, the board, we had a bit of a breakdown in our discussions with the assessor prior to the board of revision, not this assessor, and it wasn't an argument or anything. It's just that we couldn't come to an agreement at a very late stage. So the board confirmed and we appealed. This is Motor Coach Industries, and what we were looking for is some equity with New Flyer and the other large industrial users in the city. And, you know, I represent probably the 5 of the 6 largest industrial users, like real industrial people who make things. And we were just looking for some consistency. And I can tell you that it was Boeing, MacDon, EH Price, New Flyer, and Motor Coach. And they all have very large buildings, and the rents tend to hover around the $3 mark. Now, I've brought this, in keep bringing this up. You don't come back to a hearing where the board's already made a decision and expect them to change their mind when you give them the same data. So we're quite, we understand that is a difficult issue for this board. So to be reasonable, and the rents that we were looking at are on page 3 at the bottom. They're all our large locations. I can tell you that we call 1821 Wellington, that is the same one that the assessor has as 820 Barrie. That's the old Eaton's warehouse at $2. And 1093 Sherwin is Reliance Plastics. They make stuff, $2.95. And the other 1821 Wellington, which is also 820 Barrie, is Bison Transport with rail access right into the building. 770 Pandora was it's over. It was a year to year, and I believe that this was used by Cabela's while they were finding other space. And then 630 Kernahan, which is the one the assessor brought up. This is another tenant in the building, the larger one. And 630 Kernahan is was built as one of the furniture buildings, and it wasn't demised, so all the rents in there are gross. So our calculation was that it's 275 gross, and the one that the assessor brought up at 815, I'm fairly sure that this is New Flyer's industrial space at 815 gross, and the rent on that one works out to somewhere in the threes. I don't have it here, so this will be our position. So we're looking at approximately 275. And the other interesting thing is that this morning or yesterday, there's an announcement on New Flyer and Motor Coach, who are now the same company. They are looking at some changes. And what we've been thinking about is that because it's the same company, that there should be some reasonable equity between them. That is my presentation.
Any questions, Mr. Brennan?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Jeff?
No questions.
Bob?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, may I suggest a revised value to make it divisible to 2,2073,180.
Okay,
Thank you. That usually I do that.
Thank you.
rounding down.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on to 7-Eleven Carnegie. Well. Oh. Sorry, to staple.
Mr. Chair, I have it in front of me now.
Okay. So 7-Eleven Carnegie, you can proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number 19-5833, 2020 business assessment. Subject is located at 711 Kernahan Avenue, and business ID is 6658. It says New Flyer Industries. Total area of 345,284 square feet. Used an overall ARV of $5.22. This yields the 2020 ARV of $801,080. So once again, the calculation shown below, base ARV of $3.06. We've added cost to that. That yields the total value. Once again, some comparables listed below, probably very similar to the previous property. It's hard finding comparables for buildings that are this size. Got an aerial photograph on the following page. And then a map showing the location on Kernahan, which is bounded by Pandora. Page 3 shows the board of revision order for the realty hearing. This was confirmed. So based on that, we're asking that the 2020 ARV also be confirmed. Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Newfield?
You're right, so it's the same questions as before, and you confirmed that the realty was appealed by us, the owner.
For municipal work?
Yeah, it's a municipal.
Yeah, I'm almost positive.
Okay.
That's it.
Any, we've just heard about Motor Coach and now New Flyer. Is the bus manufacturing a hot industry?
I'm not a specialist in bus manufacturing, but
It's fair to say it's a more of a unique manufacturing industry, is it not?
I would say that that's fair.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Hey, Jeff, any questions? I have none, thank you. Bob?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, proceed, Mr. Newfield.
Right, so this is the same company now, New Flyer, Motor Coach. It was the same hearing on realty, and we appealed both of them. And I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but I am a bit disappointed. We have we have Winnipeg's largest manufacturers, and they from a realty perspective, they need big spaces. They need 300,000-400,000 square feet to build buses in. That's a business issue, and when they're gone, that building, its utility is very, very limited because there's nobody out who wants to buy for rent 300,000 or 400,000 square feet. So when it goes to the market, the option is to sell it at a very, very discounted price and then spend a few $1 million in demising it into multi-tenanted bays, which means redoing the power and the mechanical and putting up fire separations and upgrading the sprinkler systems. And we've looked at this for several buildings. One of the assessors comparables, for example, 13 Sony Place, had that same issue that it was faced with, was the redemising of it from a large building to smaller CRUs that the market was interested in. So that's the problem with this. There is no market interest. So when we look at these rents, the potential for use is rather small. And again, we had some fruitful discussions with the assessor on this property prior to the hearing, which, we don't always have time to deal with these, and I think we were close. In any event, this is the same calculation as for the other property at $275 a square foot. We are looking at the rent rates between $2.75 and $3 as for these large properties, and I'm just checking my math now.
Okay, we round up to 1,694,100.
See, I liked him better. He went down.
040.
Okay.
169040.
040. Okay, yeah. The voice from above said 040. So again, we understand it's under appeal. I understand the issues with it, and I just need to have the owner have a fair say in a hearing to say what the issues are. Thank you.
We just had an earthquake or the public safety building that's falling down. Okay, questions, Bob?
I'm good, thank you.
By this one. Okay, we'll come up to the last property, 2555 Saskatchewan. You let me know when you have it, Bob.
I am ready right now, thank you.
Okay. And you can proceed, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. File number is 19-5824. This is a 2020 business assessment. Subject's located at 2555 Saskatchewan Avenue, and the business ID is 52102. This is Macdon Industries. They have a total area of 127,200. So this, we've applied an overall ARV per square foot of $9.04. Shown below is the breakdown of that calculation. We've used a base ARV of $6.84 per square foot. To that, we've applied occupancy costs, heat, electricity, and water of the full square footage, air conditioning reduced to 33,000 square feet. Combined with the base ARV, that yields the annual rental value of $1,149,660. And some comparable properties listed below and their rents. Aerial photograph shown on page 2. This is a newer building. It is located on Saskatchewan. Close to Murray Park Road. Between the perimeter and Route 90. Page 3. This is the board of revision order for the realty hearing. Once again, this was confirmed at the realty level. So based on all that information, we ask that the assessment or ARV be confirmed at $1,149,660. Thank you.
Okay, question to Mr. Newfield?
Just a question on one of your comparables. We talked about Redwood already, but it was the next one, St. James. Isn't that the provincial textbook office? That's warehouse? I mean, it's a provincial facility, is it not?
There's 16 different VAs. There's a Tim Hortons in there.
Right.
Oh, that's the one with, yeah. There is government, transportation and government services.
Right.
Among many others.
Yeah. And you're aware that the provincial government is a semi-gross lease, that there's certain costs that they refuse to pay for in their leases.
Yeah, but I don't think this bid would be attributed to the government.
I was just trying to figure that one out. In the use of the subject property is tractor manufacturing, correct?
Correct.
And same question as before, there are not a lot of tractor manufacturers left in the world anymore, are there?
Unaware.
Are any of your comparables manufacturers?
I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Okay, Bob, questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Jeff, the finance. Okay, proceed.
Thank you. So this is a MacDon's, what this is this is their parts storage warehouse. So when they build their swathers mainly and other agricultural implements down the street, ship them off to be sold, they have to maintain spare parts. And this is the building where the spare parts are maintained and kept. And then if a warranty or repair is required, they ship from here. So it's part of their larger facility. They have about 1.3 million square feet in total space that they occupy in Winnipeg. Most all of it is within a couple of blocks on Moray. This building actually sides on Moray and is addressed on Saskatchewan. Last year, they bought another piece of land immediately north of this from the city of Winnipeg to expand the facility. Now, what's happened at border revision hearings is not this particular assessor, but some assessors seem to think that cost equals value and don't understand the meaning of the word assemblage. What that means is if you're there and you've got 1 million square feet and you want to expand, you're going to pay a bit more for the land to stay in the area you are, but it's still cheaper for your business than moving elsewhere, moving to another province even. They want to stay in Winnipeg. So they're paying more to buy land and they're spending more money to build a production facility. That's part of it. That's called assemblage. So we have to, this has been the problem with this property all along. And there are, the appeals on this go back to the day it was built. And we were actually discussing them at municipal board case management in a week from now, going back to 2016. Our contention is that this is part of a larger property. It's not on its own. It's not, was not built as an independent facility, nor one that would be easily marketable as an independent property. And the reasons for it are, in addition to the customized use of it, is location on Saskatchewan. This is MacDon's territory, and this is where they're located. So we believe that I think that what we'll be doing is looking to put the entire campus under appeal with municipal board in one hearing, so that we can discuss them in their totality. It's not the sum of parts here; it's the whole operation. None of their buildings are meant for or currently able to be self-contained and sold to somebody else and turn around without a lot of capital investment to make it fit, because MacDon spent the capital to make them part, a satellite of their main operation. Now, the rent that was put in here by my colleague was $5, and that's just based on looking at the size of it and comparing to other rents in the similar sizes that we had listed on our page 3. And the rents applied on the rest of the MacDon facilities range between $3 and $5.50. And there are other facilities in this. They have another building just down the street that assembles tractors and has a theater They have another facility, 400,000 square feet, that does powder coating. So this is what they're all about. And my last comment is that, you know, I've known them now for 12 years, and they love their Winnipeg. They want to stay in Winnipeg. And somebody's got to realize that they're a manufacturer. This isn't flex warehousing. This isn't office. This is what really drives our economy, is when people make stuff in our own backyard and sell it to the rest of the world. My opinion, they should be paying less tax than anybody else. They should be paying less tax than golf courses. There's no break for them because they're driving our industry. But again, that's outside of what we're dealing with here. Here, we're dealing with the real estate. So you have to consider, you're putting this in the market and you're putting 1 million square feet in the market. What are you going to get for it? And it needs a lot of money to convert it for independent use. So I mean, for today, our number is fair. Yeah, thank you. That's my presentation.
Any questions, Mr. Brown? Oh, but I will note your pictures on page 5 or 6. It's pretty impressive building. And nice pictures.
I took them.
Those are very nice.
Yes. Well,
Those are all my notes, not questions. Okay, Josh, questions?
nothing but about things.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Neufeld, take off $10, 915,600.
Okay.
I was going to give him the $10. This is that one with the 45-foot
Yes,
ceiling
that's
and
correct.
got the fancy lifts in there.
Yeah, it's kind of designed to be an electronic picking system.
Yeah, I think it was last cycle I heard that.
Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't bring any new material today, but
Okay, thank you. So that concludes today's hearing.
you know, it's how Pat thought it was.
Yeah.